Harry, this is Lord Potato, and this is what if Asta was the descendant of Arthur Pendragon? Somewhat. I really don't know what to name the title. I really just thought of this what if, but I never thought of the name. Yeah, I guess this is two different what ifs. I haven't really thought of the name. One was the other one that was basically also kind of not making it into the Magic Nights, which I did part two. It's just I couldn't upload yesterday. Not the fact that I was tired and all that. No, not that. It was because my Wi-Fi went down. And it was down the whole damn time until this morning they came back, but not the point. But let me begin into this what if, and let me shut the fuck up. But let me actually think of a name of what the name is. Well, I'll do it in the what's it called title. But yeah, so we go into Asta. Asta is kind of brought to the church. Now Asta, I should mention, has still grayish hair and greenish eyes. And so well, not greenish eyes. Mostly one is actually kind of purplish. But yeah, one of his eyes is green, one of his eyes is kind of purple. Of course, he has, it's kind of silver hair with kind of mixed with kind of golden a little bit. Kind of like an orangey type of hair color. But yeah, it's highlights around his hair mostly. But of course, that's when he's kind of getting older, but not the point. Asta has a pendant. This pendant is kind of, not like Yunos. Yunos was blue and had a cross and all that stuff because he was a prince of, the Spade Kingdom. Asta is not a prince from any of the four kingdoms. He's a prince of something else. Don't worry about that. If you already know who Arthur Pendragon is, and you already know about this character that's right now on the thumbnail, then you have a clue what Asta's going to be. He's a prince, of course. Of course, Asta has his own pendant that's kind of like a golden color. It's kind of golden and it has some one cross, but of course it's kind of orange and all that. Of course, the necklace of the pendant's gold, of course. This is where it's kind of gold and silver at the same time. But of course, Asta pendant is kind of like colors like that. But of course, Asta is just a quiet kid. Well, not really a quiet kid. He's the same as the original canon, very loud and all that. When he was a baby and all that. This is where when the father of the church kind of did bring them both inside, even bringing in two other kids who were actually females. One was a girl with bluish hair and also had a pendant that had, kind of like blue on it. And the pendant was kind of shaped like a heart. Elsa's was kind of shaped like a little bit like a sword, I don't know. A sword. This is where, hers was shaped like a heart. It's kind of shaped like kind of like an oval. But yeah. Of course, this girl had bluish hair. Her eyes, that from the father can see, had kind of like a bluish kind of color to it. Like a darkish bluish color. Of course, next to her was another girl that had kind of blondish hair. And her eyes were kind of, dull blue. So yeah. So of course, dull blue. And of course, this is where, she was kind of smiling evilly, even though she was a kid. Umi, in the other hand, because yes, from reading from their names that were near, they're kind of like from their kind of near chest and all that. Umi was the first girl. That was just her name, Umi. There was no actual last name. The other girl was named Junko. Of course, no last name either for that. Yuno was Yuno because Yuno didn't have a last name until you already know in the manga. He's basically the Spade Prince, and I don't actually remember his last name. And of course, then there was Asta. Asta didn't have a last name, but yeah. Of course, the father decides to take care of all four of them. Of course, when they were getting older, this is where, realized one thing. Asta didn't actually show to have any magic. Asta also, from being actually a child, he actually seems to be really adorable. And kind of, even though people didn't feel any of his magic, he seems to be an adorable kid, somewhat. Really adorable. Of course, that was not the point. From also, he was getting older, did kind of grow into have like golden. He kind of had growing into like golden highlights around his hair, but yeah, And since his silver grayish hair is still there, but yeah, his one purple eye and his one green eye kind of just looks around most of the time. He's not really loudmouth that much, but he is still a little bit, but not much. But yeah. Of course, this is where, well, next to Asta was it called Junko. And Junko always had this kind of sadistic side to always kind of like taunt anyone. Taunt basically Yuna or even Umi. She doesn't really taunt Asta that much, but she is kind of evil and sadistic a little bit. Of course, is where, well, her magic actually has a very unique ability to kind of make people's emotions kind of go out of whack most of the time. It's not much of like a fire or any of that. Well, the color of her, what's called magic, is kind of like a dark red, but yeah, that usually appears around her. Of course, she can be very scary and sadistic, but people kind of get scared from her pretty easily, even though she's even just 8 years old. Well, not 8, 7 years old. Same with Asta. This is where Yuno's also 7 and not 7. He kind of gets scared. Like in original canon, he just gets scared a lot because, well, yeah. Of course, he does get scared from Junko, but Junko just likes to just kind of mess around with Yuno and even Umi. Umi, on the other hand, she's a very friendly and cheerful kid and very nice to anyone. This is where, well, that's how the four of them are. This is where we go into somewhat of a time skip later. Well, yeah, time skip. Of course, they are all now 15. Junko and Umi has grown up to kind of be, well, older and all that. Of course, this is where their height is actually, well, Junko's height is actually 5'6.5", but yeah. Of course, Umi's height kind of became 5'5". This is where Yuna became 5'6". Well, not 5'6", 5'7". Of course, this is where she's a little bit taller than both of them. But of course, Asta's height has become, well, Asta's height has actually became, well, the same height as Junko, kind of being 5'6.5", but yeah. Of course, well, Asta is kind of somewhat quiet at the time. He doesn't seem to really care that much, but of course, this is where, well, they always, well, they look at Asta because Asta, he's sometimes quiet and loud a little bit, but of course, his just personalities are different most of the time. He has two of them, kinda. Mostly, he can get very quiet and serious in some situations, and kind of also at the same time, well, he's not loud most of the time. He's loud when he needs to be, kind of. But of course, he does have a personality of kind of being lazy a little bit. But not the point. Asta has a sword next to him that, well, they can't really feel the magical power from Asta's sword, but anyone else who's actually able to have a very powerful sensory can actually feel the tons and tons of magic that Asta is right now suppressing. Asta's suppressing it. Asta has his pendant right now towards, well, his kind of, what's it called, shirt that he's wearing. So Asta doesn't wear that, like, what's it called, like original canon clothes and all that. He kind of has what's called a white shirt, of course having a black coat around him. Of course, where, well, he also, well, it's mostly the black coat is kind of like blackish and white, somewhat mixed together. Of course, where, well, he does have, well, blackish pants, well, kind of khaki a little bit, but whatever. Of course, he wears, yeah, like shoes and all. Of course, where Asta seems to be really tired at the same time. He's falling asleep, even if it's the day of the Grand War and all that. He's right now falling asleep on, well, what's called Junko. Did I say Junko was? No, she's like 5 points. No, she's 5'6", but yeah. Of course, Asta falls on her kind of like shoulder, falling asleep, but yeah. That's where Junko says, Asta. That's where Asta goes, no. This is where, well, Junko has become taller. Of course, her hair has become longer. It now has 2 ponytails of blonde hair. Of course, her dope blue eyes. Yeah, it's the same and all that. Of course, this is where her, what's it called, magical power has increased. And she's able to kind of manipulate so many people around her. Where her kind of, well, manipulation of emotions a little bit. She plays around most of the time. And since her magic has become bigger, well, stronger since over the years, because she did train with Asta, she's a little bit more powerful when she was younger. But let me mention something. We go into a flashback of when they were kind of children. Yuno did get bullied. And of course, like I remember Cannon when he was a little kid from that older dude. And also did came to protect him. Asta in this world did also still protect Yuno. But Asta was a little bit more brutal. Instead of letting the older man hit him or anything, Asta for some reason always had these instincts to just dodge pretty easily. Dodge movements from people when they're trying to hit him. Asta, even though he didn't show magical power when he was younger, still was able to defeat an older man with just slightly having a little bit more strength than normal kids. Of course, he managed to kick this guy in the head really hard in the head, knocking his ass out, and managed to grab the pendant back for Yuno. Of course, Yuno wanted to become stronger like Asta. So, of course, this is where, well, Yuno in this time is, well, kind of like sometimes smiles a little bit towards his siblings. Of course, yes, he sees Umi, Junko, and Asta are siblings. Mostly sees Asta as a rivalry, but yeah. Of course, he sometimes gets serious when he doesn't know you and doesn't care, but yeah. Just like Amazon Ken, his kind of person, but yeah. As for Umi is basically the same in the same spitting image from she was younger. Very nice, very kind, and other things. She is very kind to animals, to people, to anyone. Of course, she sometimes gets a little, how should I say, very, very angry when someone hurts like an animal or tries to hurt other people. She becomes very like a raging tidal wave or something. She will fucking murder you if you do any of that. And if you try to hurt her siblings like Asta or even Junko, she will murder you. She will drown you, bringing you down to the deep end of the sea and make you sure that your fucking grave is next to Davy Jones' locker. Yeah. Is it where, well, she is kind of smiling, hoping what she was going to get her grimoire. She's hoping that she gets a powerful grimoire. This is where, well, it's just hoping that he gets a grimoire. This is where Junko says, I'm definitely going to get a grimoire. And when I have that grimoire, I want to make sure and no one messes with us. This is where, well, Asta sighs and says, I probably won't even be able to get a grimoire. Asta knows the hard reality that he probably won't be able to get a grimoire. This is where Junko says, nonsense, Asta. This is where she smacks him in the back of the head, telling him to wake up. Because Asta was kind of awake, but at the same time sleeping. This is where Asta says, ow, Junko, what the hell? This is where Junko says, come on, Asta, you can't be that depressing. You probably will get a grimoire. And this probably will be better than Yuno's or even Umi's. This is where both of them, both Yuno and Umi says, hey! This is where Junko says, but come on, Asta, you can't be that depressing most of the time. Asta sighs, he doesn't sigh, he just yawns, and of course puts his mouth to his hand, well, mostly face, and of course says, I guess you're right, but if I don't get a grimoire, I'm going back to sleep. Junko grabs him and says, come on, Asta, let's just go. This is where the father of the church and the other says, bye, good luck in getting your grimoires. This is where when they go in, of course everyone is getting their grimoires. Yuno still gets a 4-leaf grimoire. Umi also gets a 4-leaf grimoire, but of course Yuno's book is kind of greenish, and of course Umi's is actually bluish color, like a very lightish bluish color. Of course, where, well, so many people are winding their eyes, thinking they are nobles, and of course being able to get a grimoire that are actually 4-leaf. But some people realize that they are actually commoners. This is where, well, Junko's gets a 4-leaf grimoire, but of course the 4-leaf grimoire actually becomes a 5-leaf grimoire without anyone noticing it. It's actually just a grimoire that appears right in front of her. This is where, well, this 5-leaf grimoire is kind of having a reddish and blackish glow, but it's not the anti-magic weapons, not really. This is where she kind of looks upon it and says, wow, I managed to get 5 leaves. Asta kind of tells her to shush because it's better if she doesn't say anything. Because, yeah, this is where people think that she only got a 3-leaf grimoire because it wasn't out of nowhere, just came towards her pretty fast. The people were shocked thinking that she also did get a 4-leaf grimoire, but it's 5 leaves. But it's barely shown and no one can barely see it because it's so dark into the book. This is where, well, Junko nodded towards Asta, and Asta is looking around, seeing that his grimoire hasn't shown up. This is where Asta says, I knew that was going to happen. This is where he lets go a little bit of his magic when he's trying to suppress it, because, well, someone in his head says, Asta, sir, or Asta-sama, Please let go a little bit of your magic. Stop suppressing it too much. Asta says, I'm sorry, Excalibur. Fine. He lets go of a little bit of his magic, and something bright appears, blinding everyone. Everyone gets blinded. Even the wizard gets blinded. He's like, what the hell? That's the worst. Something appears. A book. A book appears in front of Asta. This book is right now just like what's called blinding everyone at the same time, wondering why it's so dark at the same time. This is where Asta says, what the? Why did this appear? This is where, well, instead of the grimoire having leaves, it appears, well, the head of, well, it appears the head of a dragon on the, what's it called, front of the book, even the back of the book. But of course, this is where it appears the dragon, but then it appears 7 leaves of what's called a clover appearing. This is where Asta says, huh? I guess that's, huh? This is where when it appears that 7 leaves, like there was 3 leaves on one side and 3 on the other side, and 1 leaf in the middle. This is where a cross appears also. Like on the 4 edges of the book, 4 what's called light crosses appear, like they were golden. But of course, Asta was confused. He didn't really mind and decides to grab the book and kind of just puts it away from anyone else. This is where so many people wind their eyes that Asta managed to get a grimoire. And this grimoire is basically glowing in light every single time. Even if Asta is not using it, it's actually still glowing in light. That's where Asta said, huh, interesting. That's very interesting. What is this? Excalibur, he says in his head. Excalibur, who is in his head, talks and says that is, well, the book of, well, somewhat. Really, I really wasn't expecting something like this to actually happen. But it's a book of your powers and how to control your magical powers, sir. Asta says, interesting. We go into a flashback of when Asta met Excalibur. Asta was walking around the village and kind of got lost because he kind of went a little bit further away from the, well, Forbidden Lands a little bit. He didn't went into like the Noble region or anything like that. He went way further and of course went into kind of like a man-made like place. But really it wasn't man-made. It was kind of natural. It was like a stone kind of place and all that. There was like this stone like door and all that was kind of open and all that. But it wasn't much of a door. Asta walked through it, and when Asta walked through the stone kind of like entrance and all that, Asta gets to the other side and nothing really changed. But what changes is something in front of him. A sword. This golden majestic sword was right in front of him. Asta, who was confused in what just happened, for some reason can sense a very powerful aura appearing from it. That's where Asta kind of walks towards it and grabs it. This is where he pulls it with his full strength and it gets pulled out. This is where someone or something summons like appears. This is, well, Excalibur that appears, saying, hello, my name is Excalibur. And he shows himself into his actual entity form and not his sword form. If you want to know what his entity form is, it basically looks like this. This is what Excalibur true entity form looks like. Yes, it's basically from Soul Eaters. If you know this character and how well his personality is, yes, I'm going to kind of add it into this, well, kind of what if a little bit, but yeah. Of course, this is where, well, Asta met this being, and of course, this is where the being says, who are you, and why did you manage to pull me out? It's interesting. I haven't seen a couple of people in this region of this, well, place manage to pull me out. After my, well, other owner kind of fell and, of course, got killed from what's called the kingdom of, well, after the kingdom of Camelot. I'm surprised no one managed to be able to pull the, well, pull me out of the stone, well, stone hedge or stone walls. Well, stone just block or whatever. That's where Asta says, huh? Kingdom of Camelot? I don't know if that's what this place is called. Really, I haven't actually learned that much. If I can remember right, the thing I learned from Sister Lily was the fact that the kingdoms are, there's 4 of them. King of the heart, king of the spade, king of the diamond, and well, kingdoms. Mostly I say kingdoms, though I didn't mean just to say king. Kingdoms of those and kingdom of clover. we're in the Kingdom of Clover. That's where Excalibur says, very interesting. Then how did I manage to get from Kingdom of Camelot to this kingdom, these 4 kingdoms? Very interesting. I don't know. But of course, that is not the point. Young man, tell me, what is your name? So Asta says, Asta. That's all. I don't actually know my last name or anything. I don't even know who my parents were. That's where Excalibur kind of uses a bit of his magic to kind of like go at Asta. This is where, well, since Asta is kind of holding the sword a little bit, but yeah. Well, not really. He's holding somewhat nothing. Well, like a magical kind of like magic sword or whatever that Asta actually created. This is where, well, Asta saying, how am I doing that? I have no magic. This is where Excalibur says, nonsense. I see plenty and plenty of magic within you. That's a lot of magic, I should say. That's really lots and lots of mana you have. Clearly, you're definitely part of that bloodline, the royal bloodline of Camelot. I'll mention later on who your parents are. Maybe. I do not know who your parents are. I can't tell if it's from your mother's side or your father's side. But we can figure this out together. What do you say, Asta? Asta says, sure. Yeah, I would love that. This is where, well, they kind of like fist bump, and of course this is where Excalibur did become back into the sword. Of course, Asta does have it with him all the damn time. Of course, it kind of just, Excalibur does reform its size into multiple shapes when Asta was kind of growing up. From first it becomes smaller, and then it was bigger and bigger because, well, Asta's magical power did absorb a lot of Excalibur from his physical form and turning it back into his physical form after he was growing up. Of course, Asta has so much mana that it was kind of hard for him to suppress it. Of course, he managed to because Excalibur did help him in suppressing his mana, because Asta didn't want to show that much mana, and he didn't want to make the others jealous. Of course, Junko was never a jealous type and actually was always a worried type about Asta. Even though she doesn't show it, she was able to always worry about Asta and other things. This is why, well, Asta didn't really need to be worried about, but of course, lots of them did because his non-magical power, I say quotation marks, because he does have so much mana, that's actually being able to rival those who has been in the world for much longer, but yeah. Of course, Asta has seen this grimoire. We go back into, well, present time. Asta says, interesting, a grimoire. This is where, well, Asta says, very interesting. He puts it to the side of him, and of course, this is where the wizard says, after all of us getting blind from that light show, I hope you all become, well, magic knights. Or some of you might, some of you not, but I hope you all become strong in the near future. So many people are like walking out. This is where, well, Yuno and Umi are kind of walking out first. This is where Junko and Asta kind of sit behind, because Junko wanted to talk about why she had a 5-leaf and not a 4-leaf, and this is where Asta wanted to also ask why he had a 7 leaves. Well, he kind of already knows, because the first word it said in his, like, what's it called, grimoire, when he kind of did open it, was the fact that it said Pendragon. And so where, well, Asta was confused with Pendragon, but of course, Excalibur did explain about the Pendragon name. Asta is from a royal bloodline, well, very, very royal bloodline of the Pendragons. This is where, well, again, Excalibur doesn't know about his mother or father and whichever they were from. But of course, with Asta somehow not being able to use magic, which confused him because every Pendragon that was ever born would able to use magic at first when they were born. Like mana is kind of surrounding them, blessing them with their, well, holy light or holy darkness, but not the point. This is where, well, Asta was confused why his mana didn't like came towards him when he was born or when he was brought to the church. He was manaless, but of course always had this instant and fast reaction to able to dodge things that are kind of just physical attacks. Of course, well, he kind of always learned how to fight a little bit faster than normal people, but yeah. Excalibur was confused with that. Of course, this is where, well, Umi and, of course, they get kind of trapped with that chain dude. And the chain dude says, thank you for the 2 grimoires. I hope those other 2, what was their name? Junko and Asta? When they get out, I'm going to take their grimoires also. They say, no, you can't. Both of them said. This is where, well, they're kind of getting angry. Of course, Yuno's eyes just go into a glowish green because he's getting angry. He doesn't want Asta to get hurt. And Numi's doing the same. Her eyes is becoming a dark shade of blue. This is where, well, the person says, oh, and you think you can too stop me? Oh, please. This is where, well, Asta talks to the wizard, and of course, this is where Junko does the same. This is where, well, the wizard says that he can't really explain the 5 leaves, or mostly about the demon that lives inside it. But of course, the word, well, Asta kind of has the 7 leaves. And of course, the word, well, Asta, this word, well, the person says, I can't really explain it, and I can't really read the language. Yes, the Pendragon, well, book, it says, is actually in a different language. Asta could have easily read it, but can't, like, no one else can read this. It's mostly written in a different language entirely. This is where, well, Junko's, what's it called, book was also kind of written in a different language, mostly the demonic place, but yeah. Mostly the devil's kind of writing, but yeah. But of course, the word, well, the wizard did kind of felt the energy, the same energy that came from the book towards the sword, and he says, what is that sword? Asta says, oh, the sword? It's none of importance, I would say. It's just a sword that I managed to find. Don't worry about it. That's the word, well, the wizard says, okay, well, you two can go ahead. I'm very interested in the fact that 4 powerful children from the, what's it called, church managed to awaken very powerful grimoires, he said in his head. Mr. Ware, well, Asta and Junko gets outside, and of course the chains rushing toward them. This is where Asta pulls out the sword and cuts through them so easily. This is where Asta says, who are you? Junko says, what the? Yumi, Yuno. This is where, not Yumi, must be Umi and, Yuno. This is where, well, she said, what is happening? This is where, they said, get away. Otabi, he's going to take a grimoire. This is where the person says, oh, I'm going to take those grimoires of yours. They were sold into a very nice, sell pretty well in the black market. But don't worry about him. Just give me them. This is where he sends chains at both Asta and Junko. This is where Asta grabs Junko to kind of jump up from dodging from the chains. And this is where the person says, oh, no, you can't dodge me. The chains will be able to see how much magic you have. This is where he can sense that Junko has tons. This is where Asta throws her to kind of make her land. This is where she did manage to land. This is where Asta is still in mid-air. And this is where, well, the person says, aw, trying to save her? Well, too bad for you. You won't be able to save yourself. Don't know how you managed to get that grimoire, even though I can sense 0 magic coming from you. That's where Asta unleashes a little bit of his mana now, and this is where a bunch of magic, like a magical power appears, splashing the, what's it called, well, the chains away. This is where the person says, how? This is impossible. This is quite impossible. You have so much mana. This is where Asta lands down and says, Junko, are you okay? Junko says, yeah, I am. This is where Asta just says, you bastard. Whoever you are, I will not let you hurt my siblings, or even Junko. This is where Junko kind of blushes because he am. This is where Asta, he pulls out his sword, and the grimoire also does appear in his face, saying, Heavenly Slash. Well, Heavenly Divine Slash. That's where the first page that Asta sees. This is where Asta does it, and adds mana onto his sword, mostly Excalibur, and Excalibur says, alright, let's do this, Asta. Asta says, fine. Heavenly Divine Slash! Asta swings his sword once, and of course a glowing slash goes straight towards this man. Asta then saw another wording saying, Heavenly Divine Dash. This is where Asta, like, does it. That's where he adds mana towards his legs, appearing in such blinding speed that he managed to get the 2 grimoires away from the man, and the man gets hit by the slash. This is where, well, the person widened his eyes and saw how much power this was in. This is where Asta says, that's it. In my last attack, Heavenly Divine, what's it called, Punishment. This is where Asta kind of says Heavenly Divine Punishment. This is where he puts his sword next to him. And this is where Asta like starts jabbing, like start throwing into jabs, and like multiple light ray slashes appear right now, piercing this guy so fast this guy cannot react fast enough, and of course Asta lands down. Asta sighs and says, very interesting. Very interesting. Huh. I guess that's interesting. Mr. Where, well, Junko and Umi and widened their eyes how powerful Asta was, and how powerful Asta was in his speed and his mana control. Asta's mana control is heavily unbelievable for people to kind of see. He has so much mana, but he suppresses it so well that people are surprised that he has mana. Of course, the word Asta says, so, are you all okay? He gives back the 2 grimoires back to Umi and Junko. And of course, not Junko, Umi and, Yuno. Of course, they both kind of nod and say, thanks, Asta, but yeah. But of course, this is where, well, they are kind of just shocked to see this. And of course, Asta says, so you guys are all okay, right? So where they kind of nod, shaking their head slowly, but of course, this is where Asta says, good. Happy to know that you guys are fine. Well, we should probably get back to the church. Come on, guys. This is where all of them nodded and start going back. This is where when the father hears about this, he is so happy. He hugs them all tight. This is where Asta says, oh, and you let go of me for a second. This is where, well, the father says, I'm just so proud that all of you managed to get a grimoire. Even though some of yours is kind of extremely rare, and some of yours is also extremely rare. That's not the point. I'm just happy. This is where Nox says, I can't believe Asta managed to get a grimoire. This is where Junko smacked him in the head and says, of course he's going to be able to get a grimoire. He's powerful enough to be able to beat you, little brat. This is where Nox says, ow! What the hell, big sis, Junko? So Junko says, like I said, wanna keep talking shit? This is where, well, Junko's aura actually appears, and that's where Nox gets scared and says, no, miss. This is where, well, everyone else starts laughing, but yeah. This is where, well, Sister Lily kind of laughs and of course says, I'm just happy for all 4 of you to be able to get grimoires. Even with you 2 having 4 leaves and you 2 having extremely, well, extreme grimoires, well, kind of rare and all that. I'm surprised you are all being able to kind of be powerful. I'm just happy for all of you. That's where, well, Junko kind of blushes and says, yep. Because I am powerful, more powerful than both Umi and Yuno. Both of them kind of goes and takes, kind of shots a glare at, well, Junko. And Junko is smiling like cheekily. Well, very cheekily. This is where, well, not cheekily, cheaply, yeah. This is where, well, Yuno and Junko says, yeah, right, Junko. Well, what's it called? Yumi and, Yuno kind of says, yeah, right, Junko. You're not powerful more than us. We have a 4-leaf grimoire. What do you have? That's the word Junko says. Only if you 2 know about my magic. That's where they say, what do you mean with your magic? Junko says, oh, I have nothing to tell you. That's where they look at Asta, and Asta's grimoire is still glowing with such bright light. And it still blinds a lot of them, but yeah. That's where the father says, come, Asta, can you turn off your mana? Asta says, my mana's already turned off. The book is just itself has so much mana inside it. So what? Well, the father says, God damn it, we're gonna have to put you giving a black glow towards the book. Asta says, it's fine. He says, you always did say that I would never be able to get a grimoire, and this grimoire is very shiny. You want to hold it? This is where the father says, this is where he almost falls down. This is where no one else can actually hold the grimoire. The grimoire is only for those who are actually part of the bloodline of the Pendragon. So of course when the father holds it, he thinks it's extremely heavy. Just the same with Excalibur. You cannot lift the sword unless you're part of the royal bloodline of the Pendragon. And Asta, who is basically a part of the Pendragon bloodline, and also having the grimoire, it's also you have to be the part of the bloodline of the, what's it called, Pendragons? This book is just there, and of course, this is where, well, Yuno says, it's not that heavy, is it, father? This is where Asta barely even, like, lets go, he's still holding it, and this is where Yuno says, look here, my one magic might be able to kind of lift up your grimoire. Yeah, Asta, just toss it to me, besides, I'll be strong enough. Asta says, you sure? Yuno says, of course, besides, my grimoire is pretty light, here, he just tosses it to Asta, and Asta can hold it pretty well. And this one also says, sure. That's where Asta tosses his own grimoire straight towards what's it called. Uses his wind magic, but of course the book just rips through the wind magic, almost hitting This is where says shit. This is where Umi uses her own water style to kind of block it, and it rips through it. Also, this is where Asta appears, grabbing his grimoire and saying, "Well, that's interesting. It seems that I can easily just destroy anyone's kind of own magic." So they says, "Ha? How is that even impossible?" Also says, "Don't know, don't care, don't have a clue, but yeah." But still. So where, Junko says, "Ha, you two are very weak." So where both of them glares at Junko. This is where Junko's laughing, but yeah. Of course, we go into a time skip of them all training. Of course, Asta's right now training with his, what's it called, Excalibur. And Excalibur is teaching him and how to fight half the time. Of course, Asta still meets Fonzin. And of course, Fonzin, was still in trouble with the Diamond Kingdom. And this is where Mariana, they kind of appear trying to kind of get Fonzin. Of course, Asta was there, and this is what Asta does obliterate almost all of the Diamond Mages. Even Mariana almost gets hit by it, but yeah. Of course, this is where, Asta kind of just kind of doesn't kill her. This is where Mariana says, "How? How do you have this much mana?" Asta says, "Don't know, don't care, and I'm gonna just let you live. I don't really want to kill you. You could be important in the future, but whatever." Asta kind of walks away and tells Fonzin that he should live his life and be able to find Donna, the person that he loves. This is where Asta then walks away, and yeah. This is where, Asta gets towards the others, and of course they go to the Magic Knights. This is where I'm actually going to leave it off for part 2, or not part 2, part 1 of What If Asta was a descendant of, Arthur Pendragon. So yes, I'm going to just name it like this, but yeah, other than that, have a nice potato day, potato night, potato day, potato, and good night.